Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the Yale. This is their part number 50-8800-X026. This is a strike plate, obviously is what it is. This is an extended lip strike plate. That's what separates it from the standard strike. The X026 means it's a 2-inch lip length, and that's about 3/4 inch longer than standard. Let's take some dimensional properties. First of all, it's a 4 7/8 strike. The overall height is indeed 4 7/8. That's going to be typical when it comes to, of course, hollow metal frames. You'll see them in wood frames as well, and that's, I think, when you are doing a project where you have steel frames, a lot of millwork, wood doors, wood frames, and the hardware is set up with their latches and their strikes, etc., and you have mostly metal frames in the project, but you'll have a wood door and a wood frame, and it's pretty typical you'll just machine that for the same type of strike because that's the strike that will be supplied with the rest of the locks. So will you see them on wood frames? Yes, of course. Will you see them mostly on steel frames? Yes, indeed. 4 7/8. The dimension here is 1.25 inches. Now, I had said 2 inch. Well, that doesn't measure 2 inch, that's 2.5. Well, that's not how strikes are measured. Strikes are measured from the center line of the screw hole to the edge of the lip, and that's where the 2 inch comes in. From the center line of that screw hole to the edge of the lip. Okay. Now, why would you need an extended lip strike? Well, simply that when the door is going into the closed position, the latch is making premature contact with something. The jamb, the masonry, the stucco, the drivet, whatever has been applied, the jamb extension, the casing, whatever it is, casework, it's making premature contact. It's also, of course, when you just simply have a thicker than average door. So if you've got an 1.75 inch thick door, and you're going to get a standard 1.25 inch lip length strike, 1 3/16, 1 5/16. It's all going to be about 1.25 inches. You can live with one maybe a little shorter, but you don't want it shorter because then it's too short. You don't want it too long because then you have projecting hardware into the opening. You don't want to have an excess amount of material hanging into the opening. In my own personal experience, I've walked down a hallway with projecting hardware like hinges that are too wide or wider than they should otherwise be. Crack the crown of your watch on that as you walk down. Catch the sleeve of your coat on projecting hardware. I had a client literally just call me not too long ago saying, yeah, I need to order all new extended lip strikes. I ordered them from someone and I told them that I wanted a particular size and they sent the wrong ones and I need the right ones. And why? What happened? He's like, well, I was going to leave them, but every time I walk down the hallway I seem to hit my hand on the strike that's projecting out, and it's a piece of metal. So now where would you use a 2 inch lip length rather than 1.25 inch standard? Well, when you've got 3/4 inch more than otherwise. So if you've got a door and it's a typical 1 3/4 inch thickness, it would really take like a 3 inch or 3 1/4 inch thick door before I'd be adding this lip length, because let's imagine the lock is centered in the edge of the door and I really only need to extend the one side because that lock is centered in the thickness of the door. Or it could be another reason. You might simply have a standard 1 3/4 inch thick door in a standard wood frame, and the typical scenario, and I get calls for raised barrel hinges and extended lip strikes or wide throw hinges because the millwork supplier or the lumber yard who's supplying the interior and exterior doors, they send out typical 4 9/16 jambs for exterior openings. That can work, but it's probably not the correct size for an exterior wall. And of course it's not in this case. They then add jamb extensions because the alternative is to order all new doors and frames and wait several weeks. So they'll just apply 3/4 inch thick wood right on top of the jamb. It's mechanically fastened, glued on. Well, okay, if the client will accept that, that's okay with me, but you're going to need an extended lip strike. Otherwise, that latch is going to hit that jamb extension prematurely. That's where you're going to use this. And if you need an extended lip strike, you might need a wide throw hinge, or you might need a raised barrel, or you might need none of it. So whatever the reason is that you need this, now I happen to know this client just has a thicker than average door, so it's pretty simple. But there'll be lots of instances, as mentioned, where you will need a longer lip length. Let's switch to the screen view now and take a closer look at some supporting documentation. Now there's not too terribly much to see here, but let's take a look at some photographs that we have. That's what the strike looks like. The BSP, by the way, in the part number is black suede powder coat. You're just seeing different areas of the overhead light being blocked here. It's all the same consistent finish. A little bit of an edge of what that curved lip looks like. Again, 2-inch from here to the center here. And then the backside. You'll notice it's a one large cutout that's here. That allows this strike to work in all functions, passage all the way up to double cylinder with deadbolt, in a non-handed sense is what it is. Non-handed. It's completely symmetrical. I don't like this design. It can be better. Of course, Yale is certainly aware of that. It's just when you make the design better, you invariably cause it to be a handed product, which, you know, it's a compromise, I suppose. Do you want to have life easier where you don't have handed strikes because the lock is completely reversible? Or do you want it to be non-reversible where, you know, if you need to turn one into a left, you can't? So when it comes to the lock bodies, there's no reason for them not to be reversible. But when it comes to strikes, there's clearly an advantage to them being reversible. Or there is an advantage. I don't know how clear it is. But the curved lip design is certainly advantageous when it comes to these strikes. There's no problem about it being curved. The issue is about having this big slot that's here. Now that's intended to fit the deadbolt, and then of course the latch that will be here, and your dead latch will probably reside here. It doesn't go into the hole because it needs to be held in. The problem with the deadbolt and the latch is this. In a scenario where you have an exterior door that's weather stripped, you will push the door closed. Before you throw the deadbolt, the weather stripping pushes against the face of the door and forces it to relax into its hole. Here. Here. Okay? So the door has some bias pushing it this way because of the weather stripping. The latch bolt will kind of, you know, the door will be pushed all the way in so that it is, I'm sorry, I drew that on, no, I drew it on the right side. So when you go to close that door, no, I definitely drew it on the wrong side. Okay, so when you go to close that door, we'll get it right. It's going to push that latch bolt back against here. Okay? So, because the weather stripping is pushing the door back in, it would otherwise be more centered in this opening, if that was centered. A better design is where the deadbolt hole is offset. You'll notice this and this aren't even because when you close the door gets relaxed and pushed back. There's not enough clearance in this area for the bolt to really occupy that space. So you'll notice one of two things. People who make mortise locks with handed strikes, the better ones will shift that hole. They'll kick it out ever so slightly. Or you'll notice in the edge of the mortise lock that the deadbolt and the latch aren't perfectly aligned like this. That may be the case with Yale. I believe that it is, which is how they get away with that scenario. If you've ever installed a mortise lock and then found that you had to file the strike, it's because of this exact file the strike at the deadbolt. It's because of this reason. Now there is something else I'd like to show you. Copy the part number if you would. Control F, Control C. Click the link to the manufacturer's page here, and then let's open up the parts manual, which is here. Do a find function on your keyboard for that part number. and the document will be indexed, and then you will arrive at the page where this item, this armor front and strike page, will show you the chart of what you're working on. Okay, they give you all the dimensions. You can see how the X026 changes as the lip length changes. 1 1/4 curved is standard. They'll go all the way out to 2 1/8. If that's not wide enough for you, reach out to us. We have the ability to provide you with even greater lengths, so not a problem there at all. The FIN and the part number here is just simply the finish. This client ordered BSP, which is black suede powder coat, a relatively new finish. The year now is 2020. It's been popular for a couple of years, and it probably will be for a decade or so overall before it starts to fall out of favor. But yes, BSP, black suede powder coat. Then gives you other options here as well. If you want a flat lip strike, you can do that in a flat lip. Now, you see that they have a 7/8 flat lip. Where would you use a 7/8 strike? Well, here's where you would use that. You're going to use that when you have exclusively a pair of doors and there is an astragal applied to the, let's say, the pull face of the left-hand reverse active door. Well, you need that strike to sit in there, but you can't have the lip length hang out. So 7/8 times 2, well, sure, it's 1 3/4, which is the thickness of your door. So the center line to the edge, that's your 7/8. So that's where you would end up using that 7/8 lip length. All the other cases are just when you have a frame condition, a wall condition. You might also have an inset condition as well. So you have a wood frame. Let's just say that this is typical 1 3/4, no problem at all, standard lip length on the strike. Well, what if you had an 1 3/4 thick door, and now that inset went from basically 0 or 3/32 to, 1.5 inches? It exists. Of course it does. Where it would exist would be, imagine if this wasn't about 5.5 inch. Imagine if it was 12 inch. Well, or likely more so in this case, 8 inch. But imagine if it was 16 inch. Well, you're going to need a longer lip on that strike plate. You're going to need raised barrel hinges. If this was the hinge side, you're going to need a raised barrel hinge. Whatever the case might be. Get that barrel off the jamb part here. Okay, the balance of the information on the Yale manufacturer's page, again, the product catalog, etc. Speaking of that, there are several very old Yale product catalogs from 1880 over to 1837, and with many years in between. If you're interested in doing some research, wanted to see what Yale was putting out in 1897, well, there's your catalog. Let's wrap up this video on camera. In conclusion, a typical piece of item, for a specialty application, the factory will obviously make available parts like this. Why does the client need this? He ordered screws for a thicker door, a strike for a thicker door. He ordered a longer than standard cylinder. He didn't order other parts that he might need, like a longer spindle. A 2-inch thicker door, depending on how it's being done, he'll have a thicker door to be sure, but the door might be thicker on the push side of the opening only, meaning you'll have an 1 3/4 thick door, but if you're applying like 3/4 inch thick material to the face of the door, like a fabric or woodwork, you'll need a longer lip strike. You'll need longer screws. The standard spindle is going to work from the inside because the center of that 1 3/4 thick door to the inside of the door is the same dimension. They've added 1 inch to the push side. The stock spindle might work for that sort of length. Who knows? I doubt that it would, but you would need to order that lock. I'm waiting for the factory to ship locks now for that exact scenario. I have a client that has 1 3/4 thick doors where they've got an opening where they've added 1 inch to the pull side. They've added 1/2 inch on 2 other doors to the pull side. So what that means is on the pull side we need, the narrative to the factory is we've got 1 3/4 thick doors. We're adding 1 inch to the pull side. Therefore, we're going to need a longer lip strike. We're going to need longer screws. We're going to need a longer spindle on the secure side of the door, the side where the key will be, the pull side of the door, because these are reverse bevel doors. And then everything else is going to be okay, but they do need those parts. Oh, forgive me, and of course a longer cylinder. So they're going to need about a 2 inch, well, 2 1/8 for sure. They're going to need a 2 1/8 inch cylinder. That's part of it as well. So there you go. Any questions on the 50-8800-X026 bsp strike or any other Yale product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up. Please subscribe and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.